The polished studio lights of the public broadcasting service in Washington, D.C. cast a harsh glow, the final frontier for Evelyn Sterling, a woman who chose spreadsheets over soul for 30 years. Just 4 years earlier, she stood in a sun-baked ravine in Wyoming, holding the frail, injured body of a cougar cub. Tonight, the cub she named Ranger, now a powerful adult, was rumored to be the special guest for the live fundraiser. Evelyn swallowed, her heart pounding a rhythm she hadn't felt since that first moment of crisis. She wondered, could he possibly remember? The tension started not in the city, but in the silence of the Wyoming high desert. Evelyn, newly retired and volunteering, had come to the rugged landscape to find purpose. She found a deep ravine, not of her choosing, but led there by Dr. Joe Walks Far, the sanctuary's stoic director, an elder with the wisdom of the land in his voice. They weren't looking for a cougar, they were checking boundary fences. But then they heard it, a weak, desperate sound, more like a choked cry than a wild roar. They found him trapped, his leg caught in an illegal wire snare. He was tiny, perhaps 7 weeks old, his fur matted with grime, his amber eyes wide with terror and pain. This cub, this magnificent creature, was literally being left to die by a world that saw him as a threat. As vermin, the very embodiment of the prejudice that still haunted this beautiful land. Evelyn, the former CEO, felt the decades of professional composure crumble. She knelt, ignoring the danger, ignoring the heat, and simply held him. The cub, who should have hissed, simply collapsed against her chest, trusting the first touch of kindness he had ever known from a human. "We're taking him," she whispered to Joe, her voice shaking, sealing a bond that would defy time and distance. But the rescue was just the beginning. The infection had set in deep. Back at the makeshift clinic, Dr. Joe looked grave. "Evie," he said gently, "his spirit is strong, but his body is failing. This snare cut him to the bone." Evelyn spent the next 72 hours awake, feeding him every 3 hours, talking to him, her heart breaking a little more with every shallow breath he took. The fight to save him physically was overwhelming, but the fight to keep him alive against the judgment of the outside world was just beginning. The locals wanted him dead. They called him a threat. But what if this tiny cub was the key to unlocking an even bigger secret, a secret they tried to bury? Stay with us. The danger is about to escalate. The moment Ranger's breathing finally steadied, the threats began. Not from the wilderness, but from Mr. Harlan, a local rancher and influential member of the county board, a man whose ingrained prejudice against predators was as fierce as the sun. Harlan invoked an archaic law, a dusty regulation that labeled cougars as uncontrollable vermin, demanding that Ranger be euthanized immediately. It was a thinly veiled attack on Dr. Joe's sanctuary itself, an attempt to cleanse the land of anything they deemed other. Evelyn, the refined woman who had run multi-million-dollar companies, now faced a hostile county board meeting in a dusty, wood-paneled room. Harlan sat across the table, his face set in a mask of disdain. "This is not a pet, Miss Sterling," he drawled, looking down his nose. "It's a killer. You're letting sentiment cloud judgment." The room was charged with tension. Evelyn rose. She didn't speak of statistics. She spoke of life. "You talk about judgment, Mr. Harlan. I talk about mercy. This cub was left for dead by human cruelty. We are not protecting a killer. We are healing a victim. If you destroy him based on an outdated law, you aren't protecting the community. You are enshrining your own prejudice." Her voice, firm and clear, silenced the room. The vote was tight, agonizingly close. But thanks to her eloquent, heartfelt appeal, a defense of the animal that was truly a defense of compassion itself, they won. Ranger could live. The victory felt exhilarating, but the cost was high. Harlan simply glared, his eyes promising retribution. "You won this battle, Sterling," he muttered in the hallway. "But the mountains remember, and we will not forget." The threat hung heavy in the high desert air. Evie realized the battle wasn't against a law, it was against a stubborn, systemic hatred, and that hatred was relentless. They saved him from the law, but the wild holds its own dangers. And the biggest threat of all is about to emerge from the darkness. What about Ranger's mother? Did she survive? 6 weeks passed in a blur of round-the-clock care. Ranger thrived, but a question haunted them. What about his mother? Cougar mothers rarely abandon their young unless they are gravely injured or dead. Dr. Joe, using Ranger's subtle scent trails and his own knowledge, found signs, a unique footprint, a torn piece of fur, suggesting the mother cougar might still be alive, injured, and desperate. At the same time, the sanctuary received a critical, urgent call. Evelyn's old network needed her expertise for a high-profile, potentially career-defining PBS documentary series. It was a chance to secure the sanctuary's financial future forever, but it meant leaving Ranger. The danger intensified. Evelyn and Dr. Joe were forced to split. Joe went deep into the mountains to track the mother cougar, hoping to rescue her before she succumbed to her injuries. Evelyn had to prepare for her sudden departure. That's when Mr. Harlan struck. He didn't come for Ranger. He targeted the wildlife corridor fence, the lifeline separating the sanctuary from the vast, unforgiving wilderness. He cut a crucial section, intending to expose the animals to the harsh elements and discredit Dr. Joe's efforts, hoping Ranger would disappear. Evelyn and 2 young volunteers discovered the sabotage just hours before her flight. The wind howled through the gaping hole in the fence. Ranger, now strong and curious, was pacing his enclosure, drawn to the breach. Evelyn knew, if he got out, he'd be dead within hours, either by the elements or by Harlan's vengeful hands. The tension was suffocating. They had to repair the high-tension wires in near darkness, their hands bleeding, knowing that Joe was still out in the unforgiving wilderness. As Evelyn desperately worked the fencing, she heard a sound from the ridge. Not Ranger, but a low, throaty groan. The mother cougar. Joe hadn't found her yet, but she was close, drawn to the sound of her cub, weakened and hunted. Evie knew she had to leave Ranger to save the sanctuary and to get the funding to protect the mother. Evelyn made her decision. She finished the fence, a final, ragged barricade. She called Dr. Joe, relaying the mother's location. Then she walked into Ranger's enclosure for the final time. She held the now 20-pound cub, who purred a continuous, vibrating rhythm against her collarbone, a sound only meant for family. "You have to be strong, Ranger," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm coming back for you. I promise. But I have to leave to save this place." She walked out, not looking back. The second goodbye was infinitely harder than the first. She was choosing the system, the career she thought she needed, over the heart she had just found. 5 years, a world away. The silence of the plane was deafening after the continuous purr she had left behind. Evelyn chose a prestigious career over her heart. She flew away, promising to return. 5 years passed. Did Ranger forget the woman who saved him? And what happened to the cougar mother? The answer is waiting in a PBS studio. 5 years melted into a blur of network meetings, late-night edits, and Emmy nominations. Evelyn Sterling was a star correspondent based in a sleek New York City office, successful by every metric the world cared about. But her apartment felt cold. The awards felt hollow. Every time she saw a flash of gray fur on screen, her heart ached with the phantom weight of a cub she'd left behind. Meanwhile, Dr. Joe and his team successfully rescued Ranger's mother, rehabilitating her and a new litter of cubs, thanks to the funding Evie's initial efforts secured. Ranger, too big to release, became the magnificent ambassador for the sanctuary, strong, gentle, but with one strange habit. He would approach every new visitor, his amber eyes searching their faces with intense focus. He was always looking for her. The annual PBS National Fundraiser was Evie's brainchild, a massive live broadcast designed to showcase America's best conservation programs. The final segment was supposed to feature Ranger, the cougar ambassador. Evie, set to anchor the entire show, had only requested one thing: "Don't tell me which animal is coming." She needed the reaction to be real. This was her final, terrifying gamble. Minutes before the show, the transport crate was wheeled onto the set. Evie's hands were shaking so badly she gripped the anchor desk until her knuckles turned white. What if they brought the wrong cougar? What if Ranger was there, but 5 years had erased her memory? What if the intense studio lights made him hostile, unpredictable? She was staking her reputation and her heart on a memory. The lights are on. The cameras are rolling. Evelyn is ready to speak. But the biggest challenge isn't the audience. It's the wild heart waiting in that crate. The show was live. The anchors introduced Evelyn. She spoke flawlessly, professionally, about conservation and the power of redemption. Her voice was steady, but her eyes kept darting to the side door. "And now," she said, forcing a smile, "we meet one of the majestic animals saved by this incredible work." The crate door opened. Ranger walked out. He was enormous, 140 pounds of rippling muscle and grace. His handler, a young man from Dr. Joe's team, held the leash loosely. Ranger was calm, accustomed to the lights. Then he lifted his head. His eyes, those deep amber pools, locked across the polished floor, past the cameras, past the crew, and straight onto the woman behind the desk. Everything in the studio dissolved. Ranger's ears rotated forward, his massive body tensed, and he began to move. Not walking, but darting. The handler, stunned, lost his grip on the leash. Ranger bounded across the studio floor in 3 powerful strides. He did not run in fear, and he did not run in aggression. He ran for home. He reached the desk and launched himself, not over it, but against it, pressing his huge head and massive body right up to where Evelyn sat. And then he made the sound, the continuous, deep, vibrating purr that cougars only make for their family, the sound Evie hadn't heard in 5 agonizing years. Evelyn's composure shattered. The former CEO, the polished correspondent, collapsed against the desk, her hands reaching out, burying themselves in the coarse, familiar fur she had memorized as a cub. "Oh, Ranger," she choked out, the word muffled by his neck. "My Ranger." The tears flowed freely, erasing her careful TV makeup. In the control room, the PBS director held a shot, realizing they were witnessing a miracle. They let the world watch this truth unfold. At that exact moment, 3,000 miles away, Mr. Harlan was watching the broadcast in his lonely ranch house. He saw the magnificent animal he had tried to condemn as vermin, embracing the woman he had tried to humiliate. He saw the power of a love he had spent his life denying. The conviction that had driven his prejudice for decades broke right then and there. Dr. Joe, stepping forward to address the camera, simply said, "This is more than conservation. This is proof. Proof that a wild heart remembers, and that love, true, fearless love, can heal prejudice and bridge any divide." The footage went viral instantly. Evelyn Sterling, the woman who chose hard over the system, became a legend. 6 months later, she officially resigned from the network. She bought a small plot of land bordering the sanctuary in Wyoming. She spent her days working with Dr. Joe, documenting the victories of compassion over cruelty. And on quiet mornings, she would often sit by Ranger's enclosure. He would walk right up to the fence, press his face against the wire, and purr his deep, loving sound. The story of a cougar cub saved from death became the story of a woman saved from an empty life. It was a story of redemption for a woman, an animal, and a community. One clear morning, Evelyn saw Dr. Joe walking the boundary line with a gentle, fully recovered older cougar, Ranger's mother. The family was whole, thanks to her sacrifice and her return. Evelyn smiled, truly home at last. If this story of heart and second chances resonated with you, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to see more stories of incredible bonds that defy all logic. We've got another amazing rescue story waiting for you right here.